You always have notes.
I have
Hello,
no
everyone. Sorry we are so late. We were backstage, chit chatting, chatting, and chitting,
and chitty. Chitty chit.
chitting and chatting, chatting and chitting.
You know it.
You knew it. Oh, so I do want to tell you this, Bree.
Yes.
So while reading this,
Uh-huh.
because I was very much so inspired. Do you remember the video you did with your grandmother
Oh yes.
where you called her?
Yes.
So while reading this, especially, I'm sorry, y'all, just already jumping around. I promise I will get back to this completely off. Well, it's on topic, but off topic. When I got to the section in volume three that was about Bloody Sunday, which of course took place in 65,
Mm-hmm.
um, I instantly thought of my dad and I was like, I wonder how much of this he remembers. Because he would have been
Mm-hmm.
turning 8 that month. And so
Mm-hmm.
I texted him and I said, would you be interested in like sitting down and having a conversation about like March and what you remember? Because he grew up in Georgia, in the country of Georgia. And so I texted him all of that, and he calls me, and he was like, well, what made you think of this? And he was just like, he's like, actually, he said, yeah, he said, I remember my grandmother sitting us down around the radio, telling us about Bloody Sunday. And he said, when I was even younger, I remember my mother sitting me down and telling me about the assassination of John F. Kennedy.
Yeah. I was thinking of it too because during this time my grandmother was living in Mississippi where all of
Oh,
that.
jeez. Yeah.
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 And then my dumbass went to a restaurant in an all white town and was about to cry.
Yeah, it's very, I always tell people that like sundown towns, just even in the text where we were getting those moments, which here we are jumping into all of, but those moments when like you have those panels when they're basically like, oh, something doesn't feel right. People don't realize like even in 2023, like that is still a thing. Like last year, I remember I was out with a friend and we were in a county that I don't like going to when the sun sets. And we were in the deep part of the county. Um, and I walked into a gas station store to get something to drink and instantaneously knew. I was like, I'm not supposed to be here. I
Yeah.
should I shouldn't be here. Um, I don't need to be here. I'm just gonna leave. And I was like, I got in the car and I was like, we need to leave now. And
Yeah.
it's sad, but
Yeah.
it still is a thing.
There's times when I've had to drive through Texas because there was a panel when John Lewis was talking about a Texan,
Hmm.
and he was like, I was, you know, I was uncomfortable because not only is this man from the deep South, he is Texan. And I
Yeah.
think all three of the books really points out how the deep South is much different than other parts of the United States.
Yes, it is.
And I remember driving through Texas one time, and it was like, them sundown towns. And I was like, oh my God, I need to get gas. I have a quarter of a tank. And I saw these big ass trucks, these Confederate flags mounted in the beds. I said, well, we just gonna have to just get stranded on the side of the road because I'd rather take my chances. I'd rather take my chances
Right.
to the next town than be caught here. Hell no. So then that was when I got to the next town, I bought a gas thing, the red ones,
Oh, and so you could pour it in.
and I filled that one up with gas so I can just fill my car with gas in places I felt was safe.
Yeah.
Cause I was like,
It's
this,
amazing. It's, I
yeah,
mean, it's amazing and it's sad at the same time that
super sad.
inevitably this is the same thing that happened 60 years ago is still very much so evident today.
Very
It's
much
still not
so.
safe.
Very much so. And I also wanted people to take from this book is like there is a reason why black folks get uncomfortable around white teenage boys.
Ucha,
There is
very.
a
Or
reason why
college, yeah, college age too. I don't feel comfortable.
it's a reason.
It's a
There's a
reason.
reason why
Yeah.
black folks be like, "Ooh, you better keep that dog over there." You know what I mean? Like the first thing was go and get the dogs. Like the panels where like he was like saying like he really wanted to get an artist to convey emotion, and let me tell you, the artist,
Mhm.
you did that.
Yeah.
But it was like reading it and seeing how people were inviting their children to murder and beat black people, and then these not white people, let me be very specific, and they were like, "Oh, get him, that's my boy." This was a family outing.
I mean,
To beat
lynchings.
someone
Yeah.
because they wanna eat in a restaurant?
Yeah. It's the same way lynchings were. I mean, they used to picnic at lynchings, and so
Mhm, yeah.
um, the history major in me. This is not my first time reading March. I don't.
Yeah,
Breeze,
my
this your
first
first?
time.
This is not my first time reading March. I've read it a long time ago. So it's been years since I've read it. But I did get my undergrad degree in history, and my master's has a slight. My first master's degree has an emphasis in some ways in the social sciences. So a lot of, I wouldn't even say a lot. I would say I was kind of half and half with the information in here, where half of it I was very familiar with, and half of it I was like, oh, I did not know that. And I'm speaking more of internal stuff that was happening within the Black community. But let's reverse. Let's
Mhm.
start off with what did everybody rate it? I did start reading Run, which picks up right after the Voting Rights Act is passed. And Lewis kind of dives a little bit into, even though things were done on paper, still now he starts to dive into, even though you have something on paper, now it's battling the systemic um, aspects of the country at the time, which
Mm,
still today, not even at the time. Run was published after his death. He passed away in 2020, but one of the notes in Run does say that he did get to review a majority of the completed pages before it went to print. So, um, if you do get the opportunity to read Run, I will be reading it after we get off this live. I'll be finishing it up. I just didn't get the time to finish it. It wasn't needed for this live show discussion, but
I
um,
didn't even know it was a thing.
we talked
So,
about it last time.
did we?
Yeah,
We probably did.
we talked about it. I also want to recommend this one. This is another one that I want to read once we get off of here. Derek Barnes was on this one, which I don't know how many people are familiar with Derek Barnes as a children's lit writer, but this is another one that I plan on reading, probably trying to dive into this evening. It's called Victory Stand: Raising My Fist for Justice. Um, it is 1968 gold medalist Tommy Smith, um, about raising a fist on the Olympic podium, and this is the story of how we got to that point. So
Mm,
this is
I gotta
another one
find it.
that will tie perfectly into reading March and Run. So if you have the chance, I don't know if this is on Hoopla or not, but you could see if your library has a copy of this one, to pick it up. And this was ironically got checked in today, and I was like, "Ooh, what do you know?" But I didn't get the chance to, I didn't get the opportunity to pick it up just yet. 5 out of 5 across the board.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
across the board. Um,
Actually, one was like a 3. No, I'm just kidding. 5 of
I'm
5.
about to say, girl, you want me to like boot you out this live stream? Like, let me stop.
Get out of
Hair
here.
Red is funny. You read the March series. You were here having read this the material that we're discussing.
Wow,
I'm very
Aaron.
proud of you.
Big ups
Mm.
to you, sis. Big
I
up.
I definitely 5 out of 5 stars across the board. I understand why this is critically acclaimed. Once again, advocating for comics and graphic novels. This is a good example of digesting the history um, of the civil rights movement and beyond through a format that I think is an easier point of access for a lot of people. But it was done. The artwork was, I have never felt so, the source
Emotionally
material
touched.
itself is heartbreaking. Um, but the art makes it, especially when someone dies,
Oh,
the grief that the artist captures on the page is just, it's gut wrenching.
mm. The panel in volume 2 where they found one of the 3 who was missing.
Was it
That,
okay? So
that almost took
clarify
me
this
out.
for me. Clarify this for me because I wasn't sure how to interpret that when they were looking for the three that had gone missing. Were those other bodies that they had
It
found?
was other bodies that they found.
Yes. That's what I thought, and I was like, "Am I interpreting like they found like it just is showing that like how many people actually had died and the bodies were hidden?"
No, it was other bodies because they kept saying, "We found these bodies, found this body," and I was like, "Was that one of the 3?" And then as the story went on, 6 miles away,
They
they
actually found.
all 3 of them was buried in the same place.
That is so disturbing about how many people probably went missing during that time and the bodies were just never found.
Mhm.
I just, I don't know. I don't know how to. Anyway, I also got very angry reading this. I think
Very angry.
I haven't been very friendly to myself. I'm currently reading The Bluest Eye. I finished Roots last week. Started
Whoa.
reading March.
Whoa, whoa, whoa,
About to
whoa.
start reading Go Tell It on the Mountain soon. So
Oh, Go Tell It on the Mountain. What a classic.
I'm pretty much at my point where I'm like, I need to be very mindful of.
You're going for it.
I'm going forward, and my energy is very like, why are you looking at me?
No, straight up. I chose y'all, I did not do life right. Not only did I read March in a restaurant and everybody in it was white. I before that read March in like a co-op, like a grocery store, and it was just a bunch of white vegan hippies. And I'm trying to read and they're like, "Yeah, like how are you?" And I'm like,
Aggravated and pissed
do
off.
not fucking talk to me. So
Don't
then I
talk
had
to
to get
me.
my smoothie and get up out of there. But I did not. I should have stayed at my house. I should have went home and
Yeah,
read. But
yeah.
no. And then while I was reading, I don't know if anybody else feel this way. When you have a car that's clear and people can see in it, it's not none tinted,
Yeah.
and somebody just walk close as hell to your
Yes.
car,
Yes.
it's
That's
always
why
a white
I hate
man. I'm
vlogging
sorry.
in
It's
my car.
always a white man.
That's why I hate vlogging in my car because people like, I don't know what it is about like when you don't have tinted windows, like people like to walk and see what you're doing. I'm like, I'm just sitting in my car, like mind your business. It's breathe, breathe. Oh goodness. Okay. What were some things that surprised you when you read all three volumes? I have one that I just literally cannot wait to talk about because I don't think I
Um,
realized it when I read this the first time.
what surprised me was his relationship with, Dr. Martin Luther King and him supporting him in ways that I wouldn't have. Uh, I'm very much of let's blow shit up. So some of the characters, not characters, the real life,
Yeah.
activists in all 3 of the books, I was down when they were standing in line to go into a restaurant. No, they were standing in line, I think, to go to a restaurant, and the a police officer like looked at him and he said, "What the fuck you looking at?" And he
Lewis was
pulled
like,
him
"You
over
can't,
and
you
was like,
can't. He's
"This
like,
is
you
not what
can't
we
do it."
do." And
Yeah.
I'm like, "Yeah." Cuz I'm the type of person that believes we've been shucking and jiving a little bit too long.
You're gonna like run.
We've been
You're gonna like
shucking
run.
and jiving a bit too long.
You're gonna like
And
run.
sometimes you gotta choose violence. Like whatever that is to you, I don't want to tell anybody,
Yeah.
but I am definitely not a pacifist
Yeah.
to the level of John Lewis. Like, no, absolutely not. Like, I would have been like, yeah, I'm trying to be passive, but you can go ahead and
Yeah.
gather folks and do
I
what you want because they have killed y'all. They have murdered y'all. They have killed y'all babies. They have killed y'all women. They raped and beat Fannie Lou repeatedly. The time is now.
yeah. I think that Run is where he explores that in detail, especially because it starts off talking about the Watts riots um in LA. And at that point you can see it, which is interesting because you're going to enjoy the shift because at the end of volume 3 he talks about that was the last time that he saw the movement as it had been, and
Yeah,
with great reason because by the time you have the Voters Right Act pass, people still weren't seeing changes. And so you have a generational shift too, where you have your young people are like, man, I'm tired of this shit.
yeah.
Like, y'all got your asses beat and shit is, and they still killing us. So tell me
It's
what's
still
up. You know what I'm saying?
right,
And I
right.
think that I get like Aaron, like I get where they were coming from because they knew that they tried to play by the letter of the law in order to get legislation passed. But I think the frustration when you read Run is basically like, okay, you've gotten this legislation passed, but now we're looking at it and it's systemic. It doesn't matter what laws you pass because you have the rise of the
White
Klan then, because the
supremacy.
Klan said if you're gonna do it this way, we gonna fear, terrorizing people, killing people still. So
And they use the name and they use the Bible. They use Christianity.
they did use
The man
Christianity.
said that what did he say? He said God was the original
He
segregationist.
was a, yeah, he said God is the original segregationist. And
And
I
I'm
said,
like
and y'all wonder why I have so much trouble with
I'm like, be
institutionalized religion.
fucking
I struggle for that reason right there.
exact
That's
I'm like,
exactly why I
be
struggle.
fucking for real. And another thing is Malcolm X, come to the front. This is another surprise. I'm not saying I wanted to slap this shit out of him, but I may have been born on a Wednesday, but it wasn't today. And for you to make public statements and say things publicly, knowing who you are and your influence, and be like, I wasn't trying to stir up trouble.
Oh, okay. So I have a soft spot for Malcolm. I'm not gonna
Sir,
lie to you.
come
I have,
on. Like
I
whether
have,
you wanted to or not, you and MLK, you and MLK see y'all ain't quite, you know what I mean?
and I
So
think
no
for
matter what you said,
it's
you
gonna
were
go,
going to
yeah,
stir up trouble.
trouble. I have always had a soft spot for Malcolm, for a plethora of reasons, and I think a lot of it has to do with that Malcolm looked at things from a global scale, and I think that that was a part of what the civil rights movement lacked at times is that global perspective and how everything connects to everything.
Yeah.
But
He
Malcolm
definitely was
knew. But Malcolm
intersectional
knew.
with it.
Malcolm knew. Like, sir, you know that there's no explicit issues between the two of you, but you have very different philosophies of how you are going to approach segregation and racism. And I know I just I feel in my heart of hearts that Malcolm had the best of intentions, but the execution wasn't
I was like, he
it
must think
wasn't the
we're
best.
stupid. And I'm like, he must think that we're stupid, right?
I
And
I
also with MLK, I also agreed when he was like, we need to think bigger and we need to attack it, from a class perspective as well. We're learning now what Dr. Kimberly Crenshaw is now telling us about intersectionality. So
Mhm,
he was already trying to be like, there are several systems that we need to attack at the same time.
mhm.
And MLK was giving us one love. He was Bob Marleying us, right?
Don't do
So
Bob like that. Don't put Bob. Don't put Bob
he
in
was giving
in
one
in,
love.
in,
And
in
John
Dr.
Lewis was
King in his
giving
state.
one
No.
love. I'm like the rest of the Negroes. Let's burn it down. But I understand it. You know what I'm saying? I'm like the rest of the Negroes. You know what I'm saying?
But yeah, I think that I I did not remember Malcolm and John having, I didn't know that they had had such an intimate moment when they were both visiting various countries in Africa. Like I
Yeah.
didn't know that they had that actual sit down conversation. And so
Mhm.
when he does sit down and talk to him about, like there we have to appreciate the interconnectedness of all of us. You have to look at it, past race. You have to look at the class differences. And so for me, I was just kind of like, yes, yes, this is why. This is why
I
my
mean,
heart.
the thing is, I agree, but you have to be completely oblivious to the world, which I do not think Malcolm X was, to think that you were not stirring the pot.
Oh no, he knew he was stirring the pot. Now come on now. No, Malcolm knew he was stirring
He
the
was
pot
doing
now.
some salt. I think he put
Yeah,
some
yeah,
cayenne in there. He
yeah,
had
yeah.
paprika
Malcolm was
and
stirring.
garlic
Yeah,
salt
he was.
in the pot.
But I think he calmed down a lot, and I think he was still trying to find his footing, which is so unfortunate because so much of, like John Lewis said, so much of his potential was cut short by his assassination, and I think we would have seen so much of him finding his footing and coming to a better understanding of how he wanted to build his own personal philosophy about combating racism and classism um, in the US and globally. But of course, Malcolm was coming down from like eye for an eye. I'm finna
He
force somebody
listen,
else.
he said an eye for an eye. And another thing that like really shocked me, I think it was in volume 2 or 3 when uh John Lewis was like, "Oh yeah, so SNCC, they were starting to get more and more women involved, and one time they went to go blow some steam and they made a comment about women. Don't cover misogyny with blowing steam. It was misogyny.
It was.
Massage noir, to be exact.
They're coming
That is
back
what
full
that was.
circle now. I'm seeing it in children's lit. They're coming back full circle now and discussing um, the role that women played in the movement,
Yeah,
because they have often been left out of the narrative,
yeah,
underappreciated, overlooked when they played such vital and key positions to the movement. It's the same way that I feel. I think a good bit of people know that Bayard Rustin was the brains behind the March on Washington.
yeah,
But as we also see a lot of times, King has a tendency, and it's just the way that history has kind of laid itself out. I mean, it's also the way that I do feel like a lot of white people interact with history. King is it. You know what I'm saying? And
yeah,
and people don't realize that there were a lot of people working behind the scenes that made King shine as bright. Not discrediting King's ability to do what he did, but what was most interesting for me about reading all three of these volumes is the constant issues that existed between SNCC and SCLC. And
yeah,
I did not realize how many people in SNCC were pretty much like, we're doing all the groundwork while you're running around preaching or doing whatever the hell you're doing in the media, only for you to swoop in after we've done the groundwork to then receive all the credit for it. And
yeah.
so you see that tension. And I also think it was very much so generational because SNCC
Oh,
had the
very much
younger,
so.
and it's like that
Absolutely.
now, even with the way that we as a generation approach civil rights and protesting. Older generations are kind of like, even when I talk to my dad about stuff, he's like, "Oh, what y'all young kids do sometimes. I just can't agree." You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
Like the burning down and the rioting. He's like, "I just can't. I
yeah.
can't. I can't do that."
I'm
You
ready
know?
for Gen XZPW, whatever below us. I'm ready. They
I just
ready.
I it's so sad that even just listening to your comment right now, like waiting to see how they will handle civil rights, when it's like, why should they have to continue to do what
Goes back to your
they're
comment earlier. It's a systemic problem.
it is a systemic problem. And so it's just anyway, going back, this could end up being just a long ass conversation. But I think that
Listen, we can have several conversations about these
when
books.
I read this, I was so I wasn't saying I'm gonna say I'm so shocked, but I think I was just unaware of the differences between the two groups, and because there's a lot of information, y'all, because this is a very much so a lot of info being thrown at you in all three volumes. And I think that I did not remember the two organizations having as many ups and downs as they did. And even in context, just with John Lewis, like him getting to the point where he had to go do the march on the
He had to go
march
to march on Selma by himself.
Selma by himself because he couldn't do it under the banner of SNCC. SNCC said no, we're not doing it at this point. And it's kind of
I
like I agree and I disagree. Like you make this loud ass statement, but then you think like, okay, you make this statement, you get the attention, you get this law in place, and it's like that's one step, but then systemic racism is still ever present. And so it's frustrating. It was frustrating for me to be like, so many of the people who came before us, our own family members, our ancestors who came before us, literally put their lives on the line every
on the
single
line.
day. And yet here we are, a new generation, and we're still battling systemic racism every single day. So it's just,
Some of the this continue.
I,
Continue. I
I
think I
just,
was cutting you off.
I think I struggle. I struggled with that a lot while reading this because I feel like, especially living now after Trump, and I
During
hate to
Trump,
say this, and I hope no one gets offended by me saying this, but I'm like, why did they sacrifice so? What did they sacrifice so much for? Sometimes I feel that way, and I know it was a lot because in terms of what I have access to that they didn't have access to. But I just keep them at all the people who died for us to be in a position where it's just kind of like now it's a system. They found loopholes and everything in between. Mass incarceration's the new Jim Crow.
listen, there is so these laws, I keep reminding myself, even current laws and legislation that are not made with people who are in poverty, people who are in
Mhm.
lower class, people who are gay, people who are of color, people who are disabled. This shit is not made with us in mind. And they
It's not.
continue to be ableist, sexist, racist, whatever, in their approach to equal for all. So I'm not shocked by it.
Yeah.
So all I think, I grew up in the deep south. Okay.
Mhm.
So there is a nut when Trump starts saying his shit, I was like, oh, they coming out. People like, oh my God, I can't believe these people exist.
They've always been
If
there.
you
They've
grew
always
up
been there.
near or in the deep south, you
They've
you
always
know
been there.
somebody grandpappy been about this life.
But two, here's the thing that I always point out because remember when BookTube had that huge uproar in 2020 about the fact that Robin DiAngelo had used a quote from I forget the politician's name
Yeah.
where it's a quote that she used and he uses the N word in it. And granted, I have my thoughts about Robin DiAngelo, and everything that happened with her being prioritized and discussing anti-racism. But I keep and always tell people that it really pissed me off when that happened because people didn't have the historical context to understand what was being done there because that same quote was used in White Rage, and the same quote is used in 13th, the Netflix documentary.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
he essentially is saying, Lee Atwater is his name. I don't know why that just popped into my head.
Mhm.
Lee Atwater makes the comment that it was no longer socially acceptable to do what was being done during the Jim Crow era. You can't just walk around and stand on a platform and be like, I don't like Negroes. That
Yeah.
you can't do that. So you find the
Other
back ways
ways.
to do it because you can't be as upfront. So when Trump started with his nonsense and people, all these people are coming out of woodworks. No, they have been there, but Trump has made it socially acceptable to be that way again.
Yeah.
Because before people couldn't, oh no, it's not socially acceptable to do that. Now, oh, you've got politicians out the woodwork who are the same exact replicas of the politicians from the 60s. The language is different, but the message is the same, which is why I keep telling people it's important to know and study this stuff. Because the more you don't study it, the more you ignore it, the more you say, this is boring, I don't care, this has nothing to do with me, it's in the past, the more you're going to continue to repeat it. And so we
Yeah,
are seeing nothing but a repeat of what has already been done. This is not the first time the United States has entered a culture war.
yeah.
Oh, we're in a culture war. What do you think the 60s is? A fucking culture war.
Make it make sense.
It is history repeating itself, but it's the same message, the same ideologies. It just looks different because it's been updated for the time that we're living in. I just
Yeah,
can't.
yeah. It is. It's it's one of those things. For the lack of a better word, I'm going to say it's upsetting. Now I'm about to say something that I don't know how it's going to be received, but this is how I felt. I felt like reading the book, The Actions of John Lewis, The Actions of um, Martin Luther King, The Actions of JFK, the actions of Johnson, the actions of Hoover. If you want to read more insidious things that was kind of alluded to
Oh,
in the
Hoover
book
was a
about
fucking piece of
Hoover,
work.
a fucking piece of work. Please read The Flowers
Woo.
of the Moon. What is it? The Flowers, the Killers of
The
Flowers of
Flowers of the
Moon.
Moon. Yes. Yeah.
Well, that will really get you right. But I just kept thinking, how much of this shit is male ego?
A lot. A lot of it.
How much of this is just fucking male ego? And I'm just like, it just felt like everybody was measuring up at points.
It's the same way I feel about war a lot of times too.
Measuring up.
It very much so is um male ego. And it's disgusting. It is, it is. And then it's I another thing that I want people to, and I wish, of course, because this is written, you have to understand too, this is definitely written by a man. Um, and so he's not, there's a lot of things that he doesn't delve into, and a lot of what is shown in March, which I think is kind of it's a lens issue. Um, Once again, the role that Black women played in the movement, but also the role
Yeah.
that white women played in the other side of what was going on.
Listen, those panels of repeatedly we saw that every time they went to do a peaceful protest in a restaurant, and it was mainly who? White
White
women.
women. Hmm. But and I wish it was I wish it was explored more, but I think that once again it's the lens I think that prohibited that exploration, because a lot of people don't even realize, even right now with the white nationalist movement that's going on right now, right? um if you want to um read a book that explores the role that white women have played in far right groups, white nationalists, and with Ku Klux Klan, Sisters in Hate is the perfect book to read about that. And I wish that there was more. There's a lot of discussion about it, but I wish in context of stuff like this that there was more, because there there often people are becoming more aware to it of it. I think that more people are kind of getting like, I don't know, but the role that they play too was extraordinary, and it still is. The role that they play now is very vital to upholding um white supremacy. And do you follow the guy from Harvard? He's from the Low Country. He's a Harvard professor. He's a linguist. Sonny.
You shouldn't have
Uh,
told me he was a linguist. You
he's a
did that
linguist.
on purpose.
Yeah, yeah. He's a linguist. I'll have to text you his Instagram name. He did a when everything was coming out about overturning of Roe v. Wade. He had made a reel where he was talking about how a lot of white women were posting images of what's the book by The second book is called The Testament.
Oh, I know what you're talking about.
Um,
Handmaid's Tale.
Handmaid's Tale. So a lot of white women were posting images of Handmaid's Tale, and so he clapped back and was
Oh,
like,
on Twitter.
he. I don't know if it was on Twitter or not,
I
but I
think I
know
know
I
what you're
saw it
talking
on. I
about.
saw
It
it
was
on.
on Twitter.
Yeah, I saw it on Instagram. Um, and
I think I saw it on Twitter.
he was saying basically like you refuse to understand the roles that white women play in this, and um you are the Bonnie to the white man's Clyde. Like you are upholding white supremacy, you are engaging in it, and you cannot negate the fact, or you cannot overlook the role that white women have played, because they are often associated with being sensitive and soft and lily white and just so gentle. And it's like, child, you see
But
how many
there are
women was
studies. There are studies that has been done in like this year, last year, whenever, that repeatedly shows us that white women are most likely to affiliate politically with their husbands more than any other race of women in the US.
we don't.
So at this point,
We don't. I don't know what black man got going on, but we do.
I don't
I
give a
I
shit.
I
You
don't. I
better get
just
out of my face. That's you vote, I vote. Shit. You better get up out of my face.
I don't know what's going on with black men right now, but I want no parts.
I want no part.
I want
Like
no parts.
you do you, I'ma do me over here. Like I'm not.
We're not built the same.
It's the Samuel Jacksons. What's his name? The dude who died. They talking about R.I.P. No, he was misogynistic as fuck and rude as
The
hell.
I know who you're talking about. The guy who would always make these weird, like, just misogynistic
Wild
comments about
accusations.
black men loved him.
It's loved him.
And I'm like,
Okay.
I
Pourquoi? Chomu. What? What? I just don't. Huh? No, absolutely not. So
Kevin
like I
Samuels,
was
that's his
getting
name.
Kevin Samuel. So I was just getting in. I was getting so frustrated because like I was like, huh, even with MLK, Malcolm X, I've read about his misogyny
And Martin.
and Martin misogyny.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like I want to be down, but how far do I want to be down?
Child, the misogyny,
Because
the
and then
homophobia.
uh
I did not realize Roy Wilkins was a piece of work too now. Roy was a piece of,
girl,
God bless him, he dead. Roy was
girl,
a piece of work. Roy said, I
I
am not.
I
There's a
just
question of, we talking about Bayard Rustin, there's a question of the morality. I said, what?
listen. They out here. They out here embarrassing us. They're out here embarrassing us, and I just don't. I I just find I'm like, like even though I'm like, oh my god, all three volumes of this was very informative. There were things I recognized, there were things I didn't, but I was also like, we just not gonna ever talk about the misogyny, the misogynoir that's happening consistently and how it was like a footnote. That's what shocked me. You giving footnote? And then they're like, "Oh yeah, the organizers really kept us fed from Selma to Montgomery." Be specific.
The
Black
women, the
women
women, the
kept
women, the
you
black women
fed
kept you fed.
and kept you safe doing that. Say our fucking name. Now, I don't give a fuck. I get it, but no, you're not about to put baby in a corner. What are you talking about?
Not you just said you're not gonna put baby in a corner. What?
I was just so stressed out reading all three of these because I was like, I don't know if anybody else felt this, but I was like, yeah, let's blow shit up. Wait, hold up. I want to slap Lewis. Oh, let's blow shit up. Oh, I think I want to slap MLK. What you mean? You going to a dinner? I don't give a shit if Mahatma Gandhi was in that hole. You going to a dinner while your folks on the street dying? Then his dumb ass gonna say, "Oh no, no, no." I hate to say dumb ass, but his dumb ass gonna say, "No, y'all, I can't go with y'all on the bus to do the freedom rider things, um, cause I got warrants." They said we all got warrants.
That should
We
have
all
me
locked
that
up.
should have
What
me
you
dying.
talking
Let me tell
about,
you, when I
dude?
tell you I was in the break room dying because I said not Martin said, I got warrants and I got warrants in Georgia. Everybody like, nigga, we all got warrants.
I was like, no, this nigga didn't. Like
We all got warrants.
I said, B, for real. Then what really pissed me off is how when John Lewis met him when he was a little boy, I mean, or younger, I wouldn't say young, but a very young man. And MLK, like, oh, I gotta meet you. You gotta know, you gotta put your body on the line. This person's gonna be hurt. That person's gonna be hurt.
Yeah, you
This person's gonna be hurt.
get
But
balls.
then when it came down to it, you,
You
you were
said,
eating
oh,
hot mugs and pig feet. Hot mugs and pig feet.
I don't know if it was Lewis's intention in some panels to paint Martin the way he painted him. It was just kind of like it was some moments where I was like, and y'all, when we say this, don't take it as a means of disrespect, but you have to understand that here's the thing that I always say about history, okay? You can admire the great things that people have done, but you also have to understand that they are human beings and they're going to do things that you're not going to agree with. I don't put any man or woman or person on a pedestal. That's the problem with historical figures is I think that we often emphasize their greatness so much that we forget that they too are human. And
Yeah,
so what Lewis I felt like he did is that like clearly he had this very he had a very pleasant view of Dr. King. He really did. But there was just some moments where it was just kind of like he had no choice but to acknowledge that he did some things that would make you kind of twist like, what you like he gonna make a decision randomly like, okay, yeah, I guess it's time that I should go to jail. It's kind of like, what?
it.
People ain't going to jail.
I was just like, and then sometimes I was like, Lewis, was it your ego? You're like, man, I'm part of the six. I gotta be a part of the six. Like
He was, and I always forget
away
that.
from
Like
there.
he was very integral to everything that happened. But he always had to flex a little bit. Yeah,
Yeah,
like
he said,
I'm on
I'm the
the
brother
big
man
stick.
on campus. I had to go to several events. And then he gonna say they were disappointed with me. Sir, you didn't take a trip. You took a vacation. 72 days. Sir, you took
He was
while
gone for
motherfuckers'
almost
life is
three
on
and
the
a half months.
line.
He was
You
gone
are
for
the
3.5 months.
chairman of SNCC. Life is on the line. This man said, if you like pina colada, getting caught in the rain, if you like making up at midnight, this man was throwing it back in Ghana. Then you gonna say, "Oh, I don't know why they upset." What? You took a vacation, sir.
I think that I think that what's beautiful about this entire series, whether it was intentional or not on Lewis's end, it shows the humanity of everyone involved in the movement. Meaning that you have to understand that these people made great sacrifices. Um, the people that we have talked about have died for this, but they were human and they made some missteps along the way. And you have to, like I said before, you've got to hold this balance here. Like they've made the ultimate sacrifice. They laid down their lives for what they believed in. But learning the history of it, there are moments that are literally hilarious. Like you
For real.
can't help but to laugh when Martin said, "I got warrants." Everybody's like, "What the
When this man said I got warrants and the
warrants?
crowd responded, we got
The
warrants
warrants too?"
too, I fell out of my chair. Okay. Because yeah, give that energy. What the fuck? You think your warrants is better than mine, sir?
I
Shut
got
the fuck
warrants.
up. Get your ass on this bus.
I think that just shows like, and that also shows the human side of fear. I think that a lot of the people who are involved in the movement are often painted as fearless,
Oh no, I'd have been
and
scared shitless. I would have
they
still
just
done it, but scared shitless.
charge into these situations head first, no fear, and it's like no, they were naturally, who would not hesitate? You
Listen,
want to fight for what you think is right, but it takes a whole different level to be like, I don't care if I die for this.
yeah,
That's a
yeah,
different.
that's
So to see him hesitate like that, it's like you are human.
yeah,
And as much
yeah,
as we like to create you in an image where you are the superhero, you're almost godlike, and you didn't have your own personal fears. You weren't scared of what, but that just that one situation alone, I was like, yeah, I would be
yeah,
scared too. I
yeah.
would be scared too. I would not, because knowing that you were gonna get, and you had no federal protection. You
None.
knew if you got on that bus 9 times out of 10, there was gonna be a chance you was not finna make it back because you had
Yeah.
no federal protection. The only protection you had was the local police. And what white man in Mississippi and Alabama was gonna protect you from riding a bus through their towns?
Dude, the federal agents couldn't. They were the police was whooping their ass. It the
It,
thing is for a little like not on this scale at all. But I have marched in many marches.
mhm,
A lot of marches I've done in Minneapolis, and you know I've told you this,
mhm,
right after George Floyd, and I don't talk about that, but I did, and there was some fucking scary times.
mhm.
Motherfuckers shooting, they're throwing shit out, your eyes fucked up, you done got hit with a pellet. Like I've had march with students, they got hit in the eye, hit in the knee, hit in the face, hit in the mouth, all fucked up, bleeding. Yeah, you are putting your body on the line. So for that perspective, I understand how hard it is. But you can't be out here saying I got warrants and thinking
Mark said, I'm finna get out of this. And I'm sure in that moment he wasn't thinking like everybody in this room probably has warrants. But
they all
I'm
been
telling you,
arrested, sir.
but listen, I'm telling you, I think that mayor thought, what's the first thing that I can think of that's gonna get me out of this? I got warrants. Like, what? We all have, I will never let that panel go
And
as
the
long
panel
as I
of where
live.
he goes, oh shit. That took me out.
I there were some, as dark as this series is, there are definitely some moments of like light and humor. Even if it was unintentional, it's just kind of like these are people who, I mean, they went off of what they thought they knew, what they thought was going to work. And so and when I tell you mistakes upon mistakes were made,
They were made.
they were made, but
And
all in,
to oh, go
go
ahead.
ahead. Mm-mm, go ahead.
And to insinuate they weren't human. Like reporters asking dumbass questions. I just think reporters ask dumb ass questions more often than not. And to be like, oh, there's rumors of y'all having sex in the tent. If you got an itch, motherfuckers trying to scratch. If I don't walk 50 plus miles with my partner, best believe if we in a tent by ourselves, I'm gonna have to suck something. He gonna lick something. We gonna do something, and then we're gonna continue this march. Did you think those people was just in a good mood to be in a good mood? Somebody got something.
I'm glad that he talked about that even because they were young. And so he said, there was this perception that they were like, you know, basically lots of sex was happening during the movie. And he was just like, I mean, of course it happened. We were young. Like, what do you know what I'm saying? Like, I just think that's a weird thing for people to inquire about. Like, are y'all, was there lots of sex? I mean, for those who are interested in having sex or have sexual attraction or have romantic attraction, like, it
Yeah.
probably is going to
And if
happen.
there
Like,
wasn't the movement, guess what? They were
they
still having sex. They were still throwing it back, deep
were
throating, doggy
so
style, lift over, lift leg, lift lung, lift under.
I just feel like that was a weird thing that someone would ask him and that he would, and I'm sure he's probably been asked a lot, that he would even feel the need to have to address that. And so it's just kind of like, how invasive can you be? Instead of being focused on what is going on, you're wondering if the
Who's
kids
in the
were
sheet?
having sex. I just don't. This right here, when I tell y'all, I just said, now that's just pure hatred. This man literally was damn near having heart attacks, was finna kill himself
Mhm.
just to be bigoted. I said,
Yeah,
now, and so you have to think
that's
about it
low.
that way too, that people were willing to die on both sides.
That's low.
People were willing to die to maintain a system, and people were willing to die to break down a system. And so you just have, when you have those two polarizing convictions, like, what do you do? Because neither side is going to break. And so you have to have somebody that's going to be like, okay, like somebody's going to have to stand down, because neither one of them were going to give up at that point. Because if this man says, I have a heart attack, go to the hospital, come back, and I'm still going to tell you, you not finna vote. I
I got real emotional of one of the freedom one of the people who are part of, I think it was SNCC.
mhm.
Um and they got beat so bad they became permanently paralyzed, like everywhere in their body.
Yeah. Yeah. I
Yeah.
remember him saying that eventually, yeah, because of it, they eventually became permanently paralyzed. I I also think it was when he addressed the battle fatigue,
Mm.
because they were experiencing so much trauma at one time that they were exhibiting symptoms of having literally been in combat,
Yeah.
which they were literally in combat, and but they weren't. You know, what I'm saying, you're in combat with no defense. Just, and I think that, I mean, John just did the way that they just incorporated everything, the art, the storytelling, everything, the way it flowed, it just captured this energy. Because even when they brought on, um, even younger kids were coming in. I
Yeah.
forget what volume this was in, and they were all sitting down. And I believe the way it was drawn, it looked like it was a white boy who raised his hand. And he was like, okay, like,
Oh, and he looked scared when
he
he's
looks
like, "Who
scared as
is
he
the
should.
police
He was
gonna
like, who's going
protect
to
us?"
protect us? And he was like, there's nobody to protect you. There's a possibility you will die.
Yeah.
And I think that being that open about it, I think for some people it could come off as shocking, but I think that they had to be that direct, because the truth, there's nobody here to protect you, there's nobody here to save you. And you have people who are part of the organization going and taking notes and saying, like, like, who can we contact in case something happens to you?
Yeah.
They all wrote wills.
Yeah. That I thought that was smart
Yeah.
because what I would have wanted is to add in some life insurance if we were able to get it at that time.
Yeah.
Um, to kinda to help out with those financial burdens. But as a therapist, I just kept thinking like imagine survive your family generation after generation surviving slavery, then surviving this. If you
And then,
anxious as fuck, ask your ancestors why.
yeah.
Because the
I
baby is being passed on.
On and on and on and on and on.
And on and on. And another thing I thought um was very interesting throughout the I think it was, I don't know, I think it was volume 3, but I could be wrong, is when Johnson was like, "Look, there is no way that we can write this act about voting. There's not enough seats on the Senate to even approve this."
Mhm.
And at that moment, I was like, "Yeah, we need to do a rehaul in our government because the checks and balances really ain't working. Ain't nothing being balanced out, if you ask me." Then two, he was like, "You got to make me," and I was like, "Huh? Was that a thing? Like, I'm gonna give you the opportunity to do it." I just felt like, and then I also felt what a lot of people were saying, like, "I'm tired of fucking waiting. We keep waiting. We give you a day, we give you a week, we give you how long do you want us to wait?" And I'm just like, this is and a lot of things that's happen out all three chapters are happening now. There are people who are upholding white supremacy so hard that they are refusing to let it go. Look at the uprising and the terrorist attack, because that's what it was, on January 6th.
Child, and
That's what it was
let
given.
some
Terrorism
people tell
is
you it
what it
was
was given.
peaceful.
Domestic, but it was given it.
It was peaceful. They edited all the video. That's not really what happened.
And they still got these folks on trial living in their house. These folks living in
On
their
our
house eating Cheetos and Fritos and Cheetos in their house eating Salisbury steak.
child, please. The federal government, if they want to find you, they can. Just think about, I mean, so there's a
If
couple things.
J. Hoover did all the shit he
I
did,
was just about to dive into that. I was just about, but I want to, this was a funny moment for me too. The panel where um
oh yeah, that I
John Lewis
laughed too.
answered. Yeah, he answered and he was like, well, it's y'all are the ones who are obsessed with fornication because at the end of the day, that's why there's so many shades of black and brown people because y'all are so obsessed
Yeah,
with fornication. And I
yeah.
was like, if that ain't about a bitch, because
It,
that's the truth.
ain't
Y'all
that
ready?
the truth?
You talk about us being animals and I saw a comment on Instagram
Chimpanzees,
that
to
I
be
reported
exact.
talking about we would screw each other in a one room shack with six kids in the room because we just can't control ourselves. I saw that was a comment that somebody had left on a video on Instagram. Oh, by the way, that Instagram told me when I reported it that they didn't have time to ruin it. I mean, they didn't have time to review it, so I could just block that person if I was that bothered by the comment. Oh yeah, very interesting. I don't even want to get into that because that had me on 10 the other day. But I
The
said, this is
other
so
day.
interesting that we're viewed as animals and being barbaric, and yet, and still, there's so many, literally, so many different shades of us because
Listen,
there's no self control.
people don't want me to take you down history and start talking to you about why people with blonde hair and blue eyes exist. So if we gonna start talking shit, let's be easy on the shit that we talking.
Um,
Let's look at different monarchs in history. I married my cousin. Okay.
literally.
I married my brother.
And in West Virginia,
Okay.
we're
My
still
sister.
marrying and sleeping with our family members. So let's not even play this game about one specific race
That's
being
your sister lover. Your
right.
brother lover.
Like
Your
it's just
cousin lover.
like I just don't understand. I just so that comment sent me, but I'm glad too that there was a lot of showcasing or he's a lot of discussion about Hoover and his shenanigans. Because
Agreed.
Hoover want to talk about doing things that are unconstitutional and illegal. Hoover is the epitome of it all. Now, I am currently making my way through it's like an 850-page nonfiction biography of Hoover. Um,
Oh, that's tough. I don't think I have the brain space for that though, Ashley.
but listen, it's interesting because Hoover learned his tactics from predecessors. So
Makes sense.
that's the part that's blowing me is that like um he is not the inventor. And I think that sometimes the way that the narrative is told is often as though he's the one who came up with these ideas of tapping into phone lines and do he that was not he was taught that. So he's continuing something that has been done before him. But I'm glad that they brought that up because what the US government was doing at the time, or what I should say, what that part of the US government was doing at the time was such an infringement on our constitutional rights. And I still think that they do it today.
Yeah.
I still think that they do it today because the FBI and the CIA know things about what certain people are doing in this country, but I also feel like they don't stop it. I watched a documentary a couple years ago where Trump had prevented the was it the Defense Department? Somebody had basically had given a report about the rise of domestic terrorism,
Yeah.
and they were not allowed to use the word terrorism. Um,
I'm wondering
and it
why
was,
not.
huh?
I said, I'm wondering why not.
Mhm. Of course it wasn't, but they were saying that this was something that they needed to start paying close attention to because they knew inevitably that it was getting worse. So as much as sometimes as I feel like the US government likes to play dumb about what's going on and the rise of certain hate crimes, there are people who already know because they're being watched. And so it doesn't shock me um nor surprise me how much information comes out about how those two agencies have used unconstitutional tactics to push their own agenda,
Yes. We
um
continue to do so.
and continue to do so. And
Mhm.
it's just, and I'm glad that John Lewis also pointed out like how offensive it was that Hoover basically pulled communism out his ass and put it on the entire civil rights movement, because I just feel like, and that's why I really want
Yeah,
to read,
Black
because I want to
Panthers
understand.
even.
I am a firm believer that the government has a lot to do with Malcolm, Martin, and Black Panther.
Listen,
I am a firm
firm,
believer that there's
firm. My
I
mind is so firm. It's like an erection on a
I
good day.
I am so convinced that they know stuff about those situations that we will never ever ever know.
Yeah.
Um because it was too much tapping into stuff for somebody not to know how closely these, I mean, think about, and that's why I said you need to read Run, because they start talking about you by page 6 you start to see the inklings of the Black Panther
It's already
Party.
on there.
Yeah, you listen, because
It's already
Stokely
on there.
Carmichael, I did not know that Stokely Carmichael played such a um pivotal role, like with his relationship with John Lewis and the role that he played in Snake. I was not as familiar with it, so he delves a lot into that, and
Let me tell you, I had
it's
zero
good.
knowledge.
It's good.
Mhm.
Um that's, I mean, I am very much so, Aaron, like I think that they had a lot to
Oh,
do. That
yeah.
was
I've
said.
I've watched a lot of documentaries too, Aaron, and
Yeah,
that was pretty terrible. Like, in the bed while his girl is there
yeah.
and the kid is there.
It just, it a lot of it just reads. But anyway, I say all that to say that in the book that I'm talking about, if anybody is curious, the one about J. Edgar. Oh, and it was interesting learning about the fraternity that he's in, which is founded on white supremacy, and still they were out and popping when I went to school. I forget what they're called, what fraternity he was a part of. As a matter of fact, I'm gonna Google it.
You know, one of the things that I forgot, and me and names. Dang, what's his name? I know someone's gonna help me. The man who actually organized um the speech, I have a dream, and Martin was actually last and Lewis was six, and that whole address. I forgot that the man who actually organized that was a gay man, and
Yeah,
how,
Bayard
huh?
Rustin. Bayard Rustin.
Yeah. How I just forgot all about that, and it just made me more sad because I feel like maybe Lewis took some liberties in those panels, in those words that was used, because they were just like, "Oh, he's gay and I think he's gonna hurt the movement," and no mention of homophobia in the Black community. Like, kind of brushed it off. And I'm just like, I'm tired of these footnotes.
I I think that it has, and he doesn't really delve into it. He only uses a couple panels. It's, but which is unfortunate, because if you're relying on this for a lot of information, then you just don't realize that that was not the first time.
Yeah, you need some
Um,
outside readings for sure.
it was not the first time that the civil rights movement had been noted for thinking about its image. And so people often forget that, like, once again, this is where I keep, because I have to keep referring to this because you have to look at the pros and cons because you're dealing with humans. And so the civil rights
Speak your
movement,
truth.
what I take issue with is a lot of it was very much so about image. Like Rosa Parks was not the first person that sat in the back of the bus. And so, and it doesn't take away from what she stood for and what she did, but you
But everyone
understand
try to act like it is.
there was another woman who actually did it first, but she was pregnant. And so it was very much about she was pregnant out of wedlock. And so it was very much about how they looked in terms of what was considered to be socially acceptable. And that's where you get that conflict, I think, with SNCC and SCLC, is that at the end of the day, we as Black people were still trying to conform to what was considered socially acceptable by white people. And
Yeah.
that, I think, is where we continue to fail sometimes, is because we have to build our own narrative of what is or is not acceptable. um and it's really, it's just fascinating, I think. And I wish he would have done more with it, but I also was not surprised that he did not do more with it. And I'm glad that he also addressed that once again, because people take what they want from history. um
Right
People
on, Aaron.
people people take what they want from history and they build a narrative from that. Like people think that the March on Washington is the first time that that was something that, somebody even thought of that. And people have to understand that at the end of the day, A. Philip Randolph actually wanted to do something like that, and he threatened to do that as early as the 40s. And Bayard was the one who organized that one. And so when it came to do this one, A. Philip Randolph was like, listen, I don't want any parts of this unless Bayard is going to work with me hand in hand. Like there's no, you you can't separate, because they had worked so closely together before. But I'm also not surprised that John Lewis did not address it, because once again, coming from a different era, coming from a different mindset of what is considered to be socially acceptable when it comes to civil rights, and that was a major conflict, and that's what I think he had to reckon with. As he got older, he realized that as the newer generations were coming in, they weren't having or dealing with civil rights in the same way that, you know, Martin was dealing with it, the same way that he was dealing with it. You have generations coming up with, like, we're not standing for bullshit. We're agitated. We're frustrated. Not only are you going to sit here and just fight for the rights of Black men, but you're going to have to acknowledge all of us at the end of the day.
Exactly. And motherfuckers don't give a fuck about being an agitator. Again, my earlier reference of sometimes you got to blow something up. So recently, just to in the same vein, but kind of not divulging, diverting for what we're talking about now. So I watched a recent interview with Michelle Obama, and she was saying how she didn't know that she would be so famously quoted for "when they go low, you go high." And people asked her, "Do you ever go low?" And she was like, "Yeah, she go low with Barack or with like one of her kids, or like just something personal." She feels like if you have a platform that and if you are Black specifically, I think
Mhm,
is what she was saying, if you have a platform, you have a responsibility to people and the masses, and that you should always go high when they go low. And I was thinking about that in my small channel, and I was thinking like, I get people fuck with me, but and I'm also not a very violent person, really,
mhm,
but I'm not always about to go high, because if you go depending on your low, if your low is detrimental, I'm going to the earth's core. I'm going to hell. I'm with the devil and all of his disciples. I done ganged up on folks. So
mhm,
I don't quite agree, because I feel like what I've learned getting older is that people like to test you,
mhm,
and they like to test the thug within you, and they like
mhm,
to come for you. So I kept thinking about that conversation, and when they go low, I go high. I was thinking of, that's how John Lewis lived his life.
mhm.
For the most part, that's how MLK lived his life. But I feel like in movements of freedom and equality, someone once said, "I'm not free until we're all free."
Hmm.
Some violence got to happen
It's
because
inevitable.
it's inevitable.
Hmm.
And I'm not saying everybody go out there and fuck shit up, but I'm just saying people of color have had a history for centuries now of being attacked, hunted, beaten, and killed for just existing. And I'm not talking about queer people of color. I'm just saying people of color. Then when we bring in queer and we bring in woman and we bring in
Hmm.
all these other identities, then it's really a fucked up mess here. But you ain't gonna keep going low. You think you gonna keep hitting the dog and the dog ain't gonna bite you?
Yeah. At some point, you got to realize that it's not. I think I don't know. And it's clear. Even there was a panel, I think, in volume 3 where John Lewis, when Martin gets punched in the face when they were at the hotel because he
Oh
was about to be
yeah.
the first black
And
person to
he
sign the
almost
book.
lost his cool.
And he said that's when he realized that night that even he can be pushed to the point of violence. Everybody can be pushed to a point of violence. But you have to understand too that, this expectation, I think, for, and I'm sure he may discuss it more when we get into Run, but this expectation that everybody was going to maintain this sense of nonviolence is not realistic because people are going to get tired. Because you have to think on a grander scale, like we said in the beginning, you have these laws in place that are supposed to protect and provide people their rights. But when these laws are not enforced, and then you have to fight a system of oppression, you're tired of the bullshit because
You're
the marketing
tired.
in your mind, you're thinking this marching shit's not working. It's not like I'm marching in. What is it going to do? I'm going to get my ass beat, and you get a law, and the law's not doing anything for me. I still
Yeah.
can't register to vote.
Yeah. Yeah. And I don't know about other people, but in like in a so this the for the most part, all three march are set in the 60s, right? They
Yes.
have some panels when we come back, hey Barack, we head out, kind of situation. But I kept thinking of like how systems of oppression and racism gets rebranded. I don't see it ever
Mm-hmm.
really going away. And that's not me being a pessimist, that's me being a realist. It gets rebranded.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of times I feel like gaslighting is that new rebranding
It is.
because it will make you feel like you don't lost your shit. Like,
Mm-hmm.
what? We did not have this, especially if you are a black, dark-skinned person. I'm not hating on nobody who's light skinned, but I'm just being honest that there are
Mm-hmm.
different experiences depending on the color of your skin. Colorism
Mm-hmm.
exists. You are, let's just break it all the way down. A dark-skinned woman at a job and somebody got a little bit of power and they white. The gaslighting
Mm-hmm.
that happens is astronomical.
It is. And it
And you be like, am I fucking
am
tripping?
I losing my mind? Yeah, you do. I think sometimes too that there are people who engage with systems of oppression and don't even realize how much they're engaging with them.
Exactly. That part. That whole
And
part.
I've experienced that where like I've had, did I tell you the story about the white guy at my job who I think he thought he had the best of intentions, but it
Ooh.
was weird the way it came off because
I
he had
hate when
made the
people have
comment,
intentions.
huh?
I hate when a motherfucker think they got the best intentions.
And I think he thought and he didn't even say it to me directly. He said it to someone to tell me because we were in a meeting and he just was like, "Oh, well, can you let her know to make sure that she buys a balance of books that are not just trauma but joy." Now, you as a white cishet man are going to tell me as a black queer woman that I need to be mindful of balancing joy and trauma. Let me tell y'all something. Just because you read a couple of anti-racist books, during the fall of 2020 does not mean that you know anything,
Don't let Ibram X Kendi get you fucked up.
because a lot of people are letting Ibram get them all types of fucked up. And that's what I struggle with. I think sometimes with people who are
Oh.
attempting to um better understand these systems of oppression, but continue to unknowingly engage with them when you try to make yourself more vocal than the people who are experiencing those systems of oppression. Like it to me, it's mind blowing. Like reading two books about systemic issues does not mean that you have lived that experience. Proximity does not give you experience.
And
And
it was I know but speaking of proximity, the people that got called the white niggers. I'm just saying it was in the book. The white folks who got called the white niggers. Uh, don't get fucked up. Like, don't be out here telling your white descendants because ain't nobody coming up to your white descendants like, "Hey, I know you were part of the Freedom Crew, won't you?" No, that does not make you exempt from the problem.
it doesn't. It
Just
doesn't make
like
you
just
exempt
just like it took me a long time to fucking come to terms with what I'm about to say. Just because I'm black does not mean that I also do not uphold white supremacy. That is not a thing.
because you can.
That is not a thing.
It is
Let that
true.
die.
It is
Let it
true.
die on the street.
Especially when that system, when you've been engaging with that system, you've been. I think it's a difficult pill to swallow. I think when you have to realize that you too, even though these systems are oppressing you, you also can uphold them at the same time.
I'm still shopping on Amazon and I'm ashamed. Here we go. Capitalism. It's tied to what?
Honey,
Racism. It's tied to what? White supremacy. I never
it's
said I was above it. I just need us to be honest.
even the products that we use. Think about the products. Have you
I
ever
need
seen
us
that
to be
list of
honest.
companies um that support prison systems?
Victoria's Secret.
it's it's
You
like
out here throwing, don't,
upholding
don't, don't.
you are upholding because they are engaging with a system that is built on white supremacy. And
Mm.
so thereby when you engage with them, you are also upholding and engaging with that system as well. It's a very it That's why people have to understand that the system is what's broken.
That's why I'm like, I won't say it publicly, but you hear what
Yeah.
my eyes are saying. I'm
Yeah.
just saying, you got I'm trying now to be like, damn, what am I buying? Like, try to buy more locally, and it's hard. I won't say it's easy because also being more environmentally conscious is expensive as fuck.
And then
It is
living, but
very expensive, and it is not meant for brown and poor folks.
the same way
So
that eating healthy is
it's
taking care of
expensive
your
as
body
fuck.
is designed for
Oh my
black and
god.
brown folks not to be able to do it because they make it. I
I'm s-
went and bought healthy groceries this week
ooh,
and spent $150.
a week, a
$150
week easily. That's
easily to
nothing.
eat healthy. Black and brown people, the system is not designed for black and brown people to be able to take care of themselves in an affordable way. Then when you throw in the relationship, medical apartheid, you throw that in with the relationship that black people have with the medical community, we are set
Oh, the
up.
medical apartheid. That's a
We
hard one.
are set up
Set
to
up. It's this,
fail.
and it's also the type of foods. Why is kale 5.99 and lettuce 130? It's both giving grass. Both of them is giving grass. You out here shopping at Victoria's Secret, hitting it up with the thong, 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 thong. The brother man is gone, gone, gone. 25 to life.
Yep.
So
Yep.
it's just things that I gotta do myself. I would love to have solar panels around this motherfucker. But however,
How
I ain't
can
got
you
the soul or
afford?
the pen.
You can
I
afford to
might
do
have
it.
the earth, but I ain't got the soul. How am I
Yeah.
have to learn without the soul?
Yeah.
I ain't got
It
it.
it's this system is it's designed. And so I think that I think that with time comes knowledge, and I don't know how aware Malcolm was getting to that point where I think he was starting to see it as a systemic issue and not just a because when I read March, I kept thinking about it. I kept thinking about it in terms of like the power to vote is what I think a lot of people felt like would change everything
Mm.
because it is being able to vote is a very very powerful thing.
Oh my God.
Um, but I think that Malcolm was getting to the point where he was starting to see no, this is a system. This is a system. It's a the system is the problem.
Yeah.
And I think that as we ship, which I wish I would, I can't wait to like when we go. I cannot wait to read. I cannot because I think that even then Lewis is starting to see this is a systemic issue. This is not just we get the power to vote and then everything is solved because it's not going to be. And you
But
start to
he
see the go
yeah.
ahead. Go ahead.
No, but we see that even in March. It will be like first we're gonna hit the restaurants, but no, we gotta hit the gas stations. We gotta hit the schools. Oh no, we have to do this. They kept making plans of like how do we go deeper and deeper and deeper until making stuff desegregating different parts of everyday life.
That's true.
Like it that should have been a telltale that, you gotta keep going. But yeah, I don't know. We can talk for 50,000 days.
Mhm.
I really wish everybody can read The Killers of Moon and Killers of Flowers and Moon or Sun with the Moon and
Shut up.
I,
Shut up.
was
I
being
just I can
serious. I
shut
just
up.
couldn't remember the name. You know me, wa- once you make something more than 3 words a title of a book, it's up in the air for me. It's gonna be everything than what it is. But I don't even know what other questions. Did anybody in the chat have any questions or something they wanted to talk about? Because we're at a minute, we're at an hour and 22. Some
I'm
of
gonna
us is
give y'all
tired
eight.
as
I'm gonna give
hell.
y'all 8 more minutes.
Yeah, some of us tired.
Mhm.
Some of us got to call 15 folks back. Uh, Thank you, Jenny. Killer, yeah, I seen what that look was. Uh,
Mhm.
Killers of the Flower Moon. I'm reading it now, Bree. I'm hoping to finish it doing 24-hour readathon. Hey, hey, it's going down. I think we're gonna try a really long sprint on Saturday. Buckle up. I
Have
hope.
fun.
I really hope that I get able to sprint for 12 hours on Sunday. I mean on Saturday.
On your channel, or you doing on Patreon?
On Patreon. Hell, not publicly.
Mm-mm.
That is so 2020, Bree. The energy. I
Bye,
like to be
Patreon. Yeah,
free with the patrons. I like to be free with them.
I do
Uh,
too.
Out of pocket even sometimes. I feel I'm amongst my people. So that's what you're more than welcome to jump on anytime you want, or if you don't want to. I do have 2 lives on Saturday on my channel and on somebody else's channel. So I'm definitely gonna take those break. That'll be my breaks. But yeah.
Hmm? I gotta outreach you because you're haunting me and I don't know.
Yeah, the readathon I really like. Escape the TBR. I'm a part of it. I'm a
No.
host. I feel really bad for y'all because my reading slump went away and I've been in my motherfucking bag. That's all I'm gonna say. I feel
Yeah.
bad for y'all. I already read. What's this, May 3rd?
Yeah.
Tonight it'll be 5 books. So I'm already in my bag. So y'all better get your read on.
Mm, 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 mm. This has been a good reading, but
It's
already.
Already. Is it
Yeah,
'cause
it's
it's
been a
my
good few
birthday?
months.
It's your birthday, girl. It's your birthday.
Oh,
It's your birthday, girl.
you always
It's your
show out
birthday.
during this season.
Huh?
Y'all are ridiculous.
What'd you say?
I said, y'all show out during this season now.
Listen, the gymnast is coming out. The Geminis is coming out. All
Gemini
I really
season.
want to do is go to North Dakota
Mm-hmm.
and watch um what am I watching? The Little Mermaid in the nice theater. That's all I
Oh,
want
yeah.
to do. But to be honest, I'm gonna tell you something. I have to tell you something really quick when we get off live. If I do that, that means I'm probably gonna be in New Orleans for my birthday, and
Mm-hmm.
I might just go stay with my dad.
Okay.
Like, Dad, come on, let's
Let's
go
see.
and see it. I don't need none of his back talk, and he better show up sober. Anybody got time? Like, take a sip. I'm going after. We here for the movie, and I'm gonna make him do a pre-show of. That's what I might do. We do a pre-show of the Lion of the Mermaid, the old one, and then we go and watch that one, and then we go get a hot sausage sandwich. Oh, that's the best birthday ever. Yes, I think I might do that. We might get some crawfish. Oh, not the crawfish. Yes, a hot sausage sandwich on
Mhm.
toast and some crawfish. My birthday has been made.
Oh my
My
gosh.
daddy.
All right, y'all. We are gonna head out. Thank you for joining us. I'm tired now, but I'm probably gonna go upstairs. Hey, hey.
Say will also influence her work in the movement.
Fannie Lou Hamer.
Yeah.
Um, I'm gonna probably finish run and see if I can start Victory Stand, but we'll see how it goes. Any last final thoughts or words that we have for today? No, no final thought.
Oh, I kind of disassociated. I was thinking about the crawfish.
Oh my gosh.
Thank you all for coming. Sorry if I was abrasive. I didn't mean to do that.
Abrasive
Um,
how?
huh?
Abrasive how?
I just realized I got real passionate in some moments.
Girl, don't apologize for that.
Huh?
Don't apologize for that.
Okay.
That's what we do too much already as
Come
Black women.
on. Ashley, don't make me cry. You know how much I
Sorry.
love you. No,
It's true. That's what
when
we
you
do. We
think
apologize
about
too
how
much as
much
Black
I
women.
love you, I want you to times it by 1 billion. Then when you get to that number, you add another. Every time I want you to add. They calling you Adiana in the streets. Just keep adding to it. Anyway,
Ooh, gosh, I am so
stay
sorry.
blessed, folks.
Wait, before we
Oh,
go, sorry. Our next live show, first Wednesday of every month. So
that's been
unless something comes up and we have to change it,
that's been really
it'll be June 7th. Remember that we are reading um where's my copy at?
somebody needs to be reading. It ain't me.
We are reading New Kid,
Oh yeah,
Class Act,
I can't wait.
and also School Trip is the third one. So
Hopefully this year, Aaron.
hopefully this year. Hopefully this year. I know it's been a very long relationship for us.
It's
So
been a
we've been,
very long, intense, very close, very loving relationship.
I'm
And
so glad
if
it's back.
if we get in person and we get awkward, I'm gonna be like, bitch, we gotta get it together. We are lifelong. So
You're awkward in person though.
I'm just saying I can be very awkward.
Awkward in person. Yeah.
Oh, I can. Like my friend, she texted me. She said, "Hey, I want to go to Miami for my birthday this year in October." And I told her I would go with her. She was
Hmm.
like, "Might have to fly out to New York first, and then we fly to Miami,"
Hmm.
because even though she's one of my very good friends, I get very like awkward and withdraw from her in person. I do that sometimes. I don't know why it happens, but it can be like I freak out for some reason.
Hmm.
Oh, I don't know what that's about,
It's okay.
honestly.
to
Well,
get it together.
yeah, I do. I do.
No,
Uh, not Jessica said, fuck these folks. That's crazy. Anyway, y'all, stay woke. Wake
ah!
up.
I'm
And
getting off
remember,
the internet.
we all got warrants. No, I'm just,
We all have warrants.
we all got warrants.
Good night, y'all.